This week, I've been working on a sermon that I will preach here at University United Methodist Church in Austin, Texas, where I serve. This week, I've also been following the news from the Texas Supreme Court and their decision to block Kate Cox from obtaining an abortion. This after a lower court had previously approved it. The story from the Bible that I've been studying and looking at comes from Luke's Gospel, and it tells the story of Mary being visited by the angel Gabriel, who shares with her this message that she has found favor with God, that she will give birth to the Son of God, the Savior of the world. As biblical stories go, this one is well known, and many of us hear it around this time of the year as Christians observe a season of preparation ahead of Christmas. As I consider Mary's story, I consider a great number of other stories that I carry within my heart and memory. The story of a colleague who had a miscarriage, a former church member who many years ago asked me to accompany her to an abortion clinic. Another church member who invited me into that holy space that I know as the neonatal intensive care unit, as I sat with her and her husband praying and longing and yearning for their child to be finally strong enough and big enough to go home. The story of a friend who lives with infertility and the heartbreak and despair that it causes her and her husband. We know that stories of pregnancy and childbirth are complex and deeply personal. I am grateful. I am grateful to serve alongside people in this congregation who acknowledge the tenderness of such stories and also have the courage and strength and faith to engage in hard conversations around reproductive justice and freedom. Such conversations demand a posture of humility as we acknowledge that we have much to learn, that we don't know everything. It means listening more and giving up our assumptions. It means living with questions and surrendering our want for easy answers. It means leaning into stories. And as Mary's own story unfolds, we learn that she rushes to visit her older cousin Elizabeth. I imagine I imagine Mary processing with Elizabeth this overwhelming news that she has just received. In her wise cousin, Mary finds safety, and her yes to God, that at first sounded like quiet resolve, that yes is transformed into rejoicing there in Elizabeth's home. I imagine the scene in my mind's eye. I consider the things of choice and agency, motherhood and community. I choose to believe that even in her humility and obedience, Mary had agency. I believe she had faith that her child would be cared for and would be healthy. I believe that she had trust that her child would thrive, not because all was right with the world, but because that child would be birthed into a community of love and care that would support and surround them. Katie Zay is the author of a book entitled A Complicated Choice: Making Space for Grief and Healing in the Pro-Choice Movement. A growing number of faith leaders like her hold together the complexity of our human stories and the mystery of God in a way that leads us to advocate for all women and for all people who are pregnant to have access to abortion. Reverend Zay goes on to say, we can hold space for grief, relief, pain, healing, and joy, even joy after an abortion, through our commitment to compassionate listening and our purposeful actions in seeking justice for those living on the margins. You know, in my training to be a pastor, I was encouraged to face life with the Bible in one hand and the newspaper in another. And so this day, I hold the story of Mary and Kate's story, along with many other stories. I lament that we live in a day when people, especially women and persons who are transgendered, are denied bodily autonomy. And I pray for the day that all children who are born will be surrounded by a community of love and care that allows and provides for their flourishing. My prayer includes giving to nonprofits like the Lilith Fund, Planned Parenthood, and Austin Region Justice for Our Neighbors. And I remember my baptismal vows. I resist the powers and principalities of this world that contribute to the oppression and injustice towards the marginalized. Each year around this time, my faith tradition hears once again the Song of Mary. She sings there in Elizabeth's home a song that we know as the Magnificat. The song holds prophetic promise for all who are hungry, poor, and oppressed. This song also holds scathing critique for those who abuse their power, scattering the proud in the imagination of their hearts. May Mary's song guide us to advocate for all who do not have bodily autonomy, for all who do not have freedom of choice, because we know that denying access to abortion is really about control. May we vote to bring down the powerful from their thrones, and may we not grow weary in joining together with Mary as she joins together with the divine in co-creating a world of justice, a world of mercy, a world of love and joy and peace. May it be so.